Welcome to the new video titled Configuring Authentication for Outbound Email. In the previous video, we configured IMAP. In this video, we will configure Dovecot to expose its SASL interface to postfix, then configure postfix to authenticate via SASL, and finally restart the service. With our current mail server setup, we can retrieve email remotely, and we can send mail from the local box, but we cannot send mail from remote systems. In order to enable this functionality, we need to configure postfix to require auth for sending outbound mail from remote users. Typically, this requires setting up a SASL server of some variety, like Cirrus SASL Authend. In our case, we're going to use Dovecot built in SASL server. Let's see how to do it. Configure Dovecot exposure its SASL interface to postfix by editing etc dovecot config.d 10master.config. Configure postfix to authenticate via SASL by editing master.cf and adding these code. Restart the service using service postfix restart. Great! Now let's see how it works. Authentication for SMTP works by exposing a SASL interface for postfix to use and configuring it to talk via the interface. In our case, we have Dovecot expose its authentication via the Unix socket located in var, spool, postfix, private, auth, which is restricted to the postfix user. Next, we configure the submission port in master.cf of postfix. Submission is a secondary SMTP port, which typically has authentication forced and is set aside for user interaction rather than server-to-server passing of messages. This allows you to require authentication for the port that users use and allows you to implement port 25 filtering on non-mail server machines without impacting the user's ability to talk to their email provider. We set a number of options for the submission port, including SMTPD, TLS security level. This setting defines the TLS requirements for the submission port. We're going to set it to encrypt, which forces the use of Start TLS. You may also choose to set it to May, which makes Start TLS optional. SMTPD SASL Auth Enable. Do we want to enable SASL authentication? For our users, we do. SMTP SASL type. Which flavor of SASL do we want to use? This is going to be Cirrus or Dovecot. SMTPD SASL path. The path to the Unix socket for the SASL service. This may be fully qualified or relative to data _ directory. SMTPD SASL security options. Set security options for the SASL service. In our case, we're disabling anonymous logins in order to prevent the service from being an open relay. SMTPD client restrictions. Rules for allowing messages. We permit the SASL authenticated user and then deny everyone else. SMTPD recipient restrictions. Rules for which recipient addresses may be emailed. We disallow email addresses that aren't fully qualified and emails addressed to domains which do not resolve or have an invalid MX record. Superb! In this video, we configured authentication for outbound email. In our next video, we will be configuring postfix to support TLS.